Let's expose the folly of striving to cure ADHD with meditation. This evening's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. The question reads, should I see a psychiatrist or psychologist or simply continue with only meditation? The Inquisitor continues. I'm a 29-year-old male, and I'm doing meditation for the last 1.5 years, twice daily. My depression is gone, anxiety almost or maybe totally gone. A lot of other issues fixed, and I am forever grateful. However, I believe I have ADHD. I still forget a lot of stuff. I cannot concentrate on my job, as it doesn't interest me, and almost at the verge of getting kicked out. I also have ADHD-related attention deficiency, where I get distracted in a second. The more I meditate, the more I see this issue clearly. I'm not a person who wants to take medicine, as I love meditation. I've seen results and want to heal naturally. But is it too much to expect from my side? And should I consult a doctor and take medicine if I need to? Or can I meditate? Or can meditation heal it also with more time? These are legitimate questions, and I look forward to answering them. Let us begin with broad brushstrokes. Good evening, Kevin Hayes and James and Rue and, Teddy. I respect your intellect. He who wrote the question. Or she. He who wrote the question. I respect your intellect. I respect your earnestness. I respect your desire to be your best. And it is not my desire to treat you the way a school of piranha would treat an unfortunate sloth who has fallen into the wrong Amazonian tributary. However, you have been led astray by some folks, the majority of which I'm sure are not malicious, but they're still incorrect. And here's what they've led you to believe. They've led you to believe that ADHD is a disease or a disorder that must be cured. Now, what I'm going to say is going to sound petty. It might sound like foo-foo, hippie stuff, but bear with me. Bear with me. What if ADHD was not a disorder, but a different neurotype? And if we were to ask an evolutionary biologist, I suspect they would tell you that a variety of neurotypes with different strengths and with complementary strengths and complementary weaknesses could be beneficial. In fact, could be necessary to the thriving of a species. Consider this. The banana. Oh, I can't think of a banana without thinking about the minions. How about you? But I'm told that in a previous century, there was the bananas sold in stores looked a little different and tasted much, much better. But what stupid white people did in their greed and in their lazy-mindedness was create monoculture plantations. And if you want natural predators to destroy an entire species, then nothing is as efficient as monoculture. Ironically, if they would have had a polyculture plantation with different varieties of bananas and different varieties of fruits and vegetables, they would not have lost an entire species, but they didn't. So they did. Similarly, when I was in college, a particularly buff fraternity brother, I asked him a question. I asked him if he preferred chin-ups to pull-ups. And he said, with the with the smugness and confidence that are unmatched, variety is the spice of life. And as glib as that might sound, if you ask a biologist, they will agree. So one of humanity's strengths was having a multiplicity of neurotypes. I'm reminded of something that, a quip that is attributed to the late Albert Einstein. And this is a very bad paraphrase, so be prepared to forgive me. If a fish compares itself to a squirrel, it will forever feel a failure. But it is not. There are fish and there are squirrels. There are musicians and there are writers. There are engineers and there are theoretical physicists. There are athletes and there are physicians. For our species to thrive, we must make room for every strength and accommodate every weakness. Consider, if you will, the Stradivarius violin. I am not a chiropodist, but I've been told that of all the violins, the finest is the Stradivarius. It's also the most vulnerable and the most fragile and the most expensive. But they say that in the hands of an expert and in the hearing of an expert, it's well worth it. There are many types of neurodivergence. There is autism, there is ADHD, there is both. And there are all sorts of comorbidities that create all sorts of really interesting permutations of the above. I am not an expert on this subject. Consider this link. This is not a live link, but there is a live link in the description area below the video under the heading of freebies. This link saved my life. I too am neurodivergent. I like to describe it as having the whole enchilada, the whole smorgasbord. So the therapists on this database specialize in neurodivergence. Some of them are counselors, some of them are full doctors. Many of them have one form of neurodivergence or another, which means they have extra insight. It's kind of like the commercial for the The hair club for men, I liked it so much, I bought the company. So you want to see a specialist. You don't want to see a jack of all trades who was a master of none. If you see someone for your ADHD, make sure that that is their bread and butter, that they think about it 24/7, that that is their professional world. That's who you want to work with. And in the age of telemedicine, it is more probable now than ever before. Now I've shared you the good news that many attributes of one who has ADHD are wonderful. ADHD folks are natural born leaders. ADHD folks thrive in peril. But they also have great vulnerabilities. They languish when in the absence of peril. It's not psychological, it's physiological. That same creativity and flexibility do not lend themselves to structure, organization, or recall, despite enthusiasm to excel in those areas. Like a fish who is enthusiastic to climb a tree, he's not a squirrel. The key to thriving as someone with ADHD is to remember the first Matrix movie. In the first Matrix movie, Morpheus counseled Neo, you will learn, and I paraphrase, you will learn that some rules can be bent while others can be broken. Well, for folks who are neurodivergent, it would go like this. Some challenges can be worked around, some can't. We have to choose our battles wisely. Better it is to make the most of our exceptional strengths, not just for the sake of our own success or our own self-esteem, but for the sake of our species. When we learn our strengths and structure our lives in such ways to make the most of our strengths, we become an asset to our friends, our community, our species, which is important. We also need to know what our vulnerabilities are. That as folks with ADHD, we have difficulty creating and storing and accessing dopamine, and that creates all sorts of challenges, including poor recall. That our neurological systems are differently wired. That will affect our coordination. That will affect our recall. It doesn't mean we're bad people. It doesn't mean we're unspiritual. It doesn't mean we're not mindful. It means we're wired for different strengths and different weaknesses. It's good to hang out with other folks who have ADHD because they've learned some hacks, they've learned some tricks, they've learned what they can do to increase the probability of recalling something, and they've also learned how to structure their life so that they don't have to rely upon memory as much as a neurotypical does. That can be done through the judicious use of reminders and smartphone apps and the like. They will not make you neurotypical. They will not make you what you are not, but sometimes they can help you to cope. Knowing who we are, warts and all, is so important if we're going to be in healthy relationships where you sit down with your partner and either you explain or a professional explains, this is his strengths, this is his limitations, this is what he needs from you, this is what he can bring to you. Luckily, we're living in the age of YouTube and videos and all this kind of wonderful stuff that can really clarify things. There's a whole wonderful series of videos by a couple. And the husband is neurotypical, the wife is neurodivergent. And we get to see both their perspectives describing symptoms, often humorously, which helps the medicine go down. But we're living in a golden age of information that can really help us to cope. There's a concept of spoons, and we'll hear people with long-term disabilities say, I don't have enough spoons for that. You see, when people who are neurodivergent are forced to live in a neurotypical world, they have to mask, they have to act in a way that as if they were neurotypical, as if they were something they were not. And doing so chews up a lot of mental resources and physiological resources. This is not a question of belief. This is not a question of positive thinking. There's only so much neurotransmitters to go around before we hit clinical exhaustion. Nothing subjective, something that can be objectively observed through a myriad of testing. When for whatever reason we push ourselves too hard, we lose the resourcefulness we need to cope with being a round peg in a square hole, we can be prone to meltdowns. A meltdown can give you a stroke. A meltdown can destroy a relationship. A meltdown can get you arrested, and in this day and age, shot. So, as someone who has the deluxe version of neurodivergence, my full-time job is working so very hard to prevent meltdowns. Knowing our strengths, knowing our limitations, having reasonable expectations, and a reasonable set of coping strategies can help us to prevent meltdowns. So let's get back to the original question. We're circling around now to the original question. Can meditation cure neurodivergence? No. It also cannot cure hair color, and it cannot cure eye color, and it cannot adjust complexion. But when practiced properly, it can help us to cope. Now, I want to explore this right now. I want to explore mindfulness and meditation through the lens of neuroscience, specifically to prevent meltdowns. So, when it comes to meltdowns, enemy number one is the amygdala. This lumpy thing right here, located in the metaphoric dungeon of our limbic system. When this thing gets lit up, our resourcefulness diminishes tremendously. Our probability of a meltdown increases exponentially. I'm going to share with you a trigger, not to be a fear monger, but simply to help you say, you see that path? That path has landmines. Let's take a different path. So let's talk about the path with the landmines. Will that be okay? Thank you, Kevin. You rock. Oh, thank you for the meow. So, way back in the 80s, a gal on the phone from Arkansas shared with me a colloquialism that was the first time I heard it. I thought it was the most amazing thing. You've probably heard this before. Don't try to teach a pig to sing. It'll waste your time and annoy the pig. That last part I thought was hysterical. Well, here's the funny thing. If people who fancy themselves meditation teachers tell you to actively concentrate or tell you to actively analyze, or both. The only way to do that neurologically is to use certain cerebral structures, such as the medial prefrontal cortex or the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is a delightful set of tools that make the preeminence of our species a possibility. It's wonderful. You want to organize something, you want to analyze something, you want to calculate something, you want to reason something, then the prefrontal cortex is your tool. But just as steel wool is excellent for scrubbing a pan, but terrible for polishing crystal or a mirror, likewise, trying to use our prefrontal cortex to manage our limbic system is like trying to persuade a cat to stop hiding under the couch by poking it with a broom handle. It's not going to work. Just as it's more effective to open a can of tuna in the kitchen to persuade a cat to leave its hiding place than to poke at it with a broom, similarly, it's more effective to use the various facets of our autonomic nervous system for mindfulness and meditation than it can ever be to use our poor, overworked prefrontal cortex. And oh yeah, by the way, for those of us with a wretched memory, we sometimes rely on hyperconceptualization, hyper-reasoning. To this day, I haven't memorized my multiplication tables, even as an adult, but I've worked out this ridiculous way of remembering, of reasoning and counting and doing all these weird things with shapes, and it's exhausting. And the more exhausted our prefrontal cortex becomes, the greater the propensity to present with the symptoms of depression, some people call it burnout, the more prone we are to have that life-igniting meltdown. So now that we know that this bad boy ain't our friend when it comes to mindfulness and meditation, let's figure out which facets of the autonomic nervous system we can use for mindfulness and meditation and how to access them easily and consistently and effectively. The seventh fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path is mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we access the sympathetic nervous system found in the middle third of our spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved to help us perceive in a special way. It has evolved to help us perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. This vulnerability is typified or exemplified by the nudity of the all good ones in tantric union. Do we have the vulnerability to admit our flaws to ourselves and others? Do we have the vulnerability, like a puppy, to roll over and expose our pink underbelly? To say, you know, I have many fine talents, but recall is not one of them. Please do not take it personal. I apologize ahead of time for all the inconvenience this will cause. That takes great vulnerability. And the storehouse of that vulnerability is our sympathetic nervous system, which, conveniently enough, is accessed during each inhalation. Let's explore this a bit further. We have evolved to perceive sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. To perceive emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. To perceive the full spectrum of phenomena, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. this can be deeply overwhelming. Fortunately, there's a solution. The Buddha described it as meditation, the eighth fold of the Eightfold Path. We access it every time we exhale. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, whether we feel it or not, we are accessing, or at least we're wired to access, our parasympathetic nervous system ensconced within the lower third and upper third of that same spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Now, you might say, dude, if these things are accessible to me during each inhalation and each exhalation, then why do I need to sit cross-legged on the floor X number of minutes a day? The answer is simple. It's a one-word answer. Urkel. Our brain, with all its fabulous talents, is like Urkel. Sweet, but klutzy. And it's like all the different mechanisms in our brain, perhaps we should call them organelles, perhaps not, or sometimes act as if they're in conflict with each other. And that's just, doesn't help. But here's the cool thing. This is wild. During our inhalation, we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, the only label you ever need for mindfulness, you will feel your brain begin to cooperate with its sympathetic nervous system. Furthermore, during our exhalation, if we silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease, like that song from Diver Down, ease the seat back, we will find that our brain is cooperating with our parasympathetic nervous system. So meditation can be as simple as finding a sustainable way to sit while silently and mentally reciting a one-syllable word in harmony with each phase of our breath. No, we do not try to concentrate. We know that this is going to be like eating popcorn at the circus. And when I say circus, I mean a 3-ring circus. That's fine. Life is messy. The control freaks might tell you otherwise, but life is messy. We can fight the chaos of life, or we can surf the chaos of life. I don't know about you, but I recommend the second. By the way, as we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation can begin to feel as if it was less tangible, less permanent, less defining, less solid. It could feel as if it was as non-graspable or empty as the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although is tantalizing to the eye, is intangible to the hand. This is why Samantabhadra and Samantabhadri Karamamudra are depicted as translucent and as non-graspable as a rainbow. Before I stop jibber-jabbering and get ready to start practicing with you, one last thing. Let's talk about some of the benefits of ADHD. Centered spontaneity. Let's pretend there's two extremes and a happy medium. There's contrivance, and there's scattered spontaneity, and in the middle there's centered spontaneity. This gal, the color of a cumulus cloud, who appears to be actively sporting a tantric union, reminds us of scattered spontaneity. Her partner, the color of the azure sky, reminds us of centered spontaneity. The more that our choices and our utterances and our deeds flow in the effortless effort of the centered spontaneity of love, driven by our mindfulness and meditation, the more blissful our life becomes. The more beautifully we're able to dance with our talents. Meow for now. That's wonderful, Kevin. I love that. I do look forward to practicing with you and chanting with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. I think it could be great fun to begin this evening's meditation by chanting a quatrain from Dza Paltrul Rinpoche's Last Meditation Manual. Let's chant this quatrain 3 times, or 3 repetitions. A fount of compassion, my root teacher. Your awareness, wisdom, and empathy are like that of Lord Chenrezig. Lord Chenrezig is an archetype of enlightened compassion. Your example, teachings, and students are my only protectors. The six-syllable mantra essence of enlightened speech is the sublime Dharma. From now on, I have no hope but you. So let's chant that 2 more times. A fount of compassion, my root teacher. Your awareness, wisdom, and empathy are like that of Lord Chenrezig. Your example, teachings, and students are my only protectors. The six-syllable mantra essence of your enlightened speech is the sublime Dharma. From now on, I have no hope but you. So you will recognize that some words are in full font, but italicized. That's me using an adaptation. You'll notice that other times the italicized words are in a smaller font and contained within brackets. That's what we call an amplification. There are many theories of translation. Some are very literal and rigid, some are very flexible. Being one who has played with several languages, I can tell you that language is messy and more of an art than a science. And so I've included these adaptations and amplifications not to indulge my self-importance, but simply because I find it more helpful for my students and myself. Final repetition. Ah, fount of compassion, my brute teacher. Your awareness, wisdom, and empathy are like that of Lord Chenrezig. Your example, teachings, and students are my only protectors. The six-syllable mantra essence of enlightened speech is the sublime Dharma. From now on, I have no hope but you. This could be a fun time to play with something known as Lama, which is figuratively calling the teacher as from afar. What it really is a way of performing energy work. So let's chant this together right now. Let us invite real imagined Guru Avalokiteshvara to the crown of our head, that in the union of bliss and letting go we may train. So, this bloke represents us. This bloke represents the teachings or our energy. And this chart helps us to visualize the Buddhist idea of the 5 chakras in the central channel. We're going to take all these words, condense them down into just 6 syllables that we're going to divide between our inhalation and our exhalation. It's not our job to visualize or believe or concentrate. All we do is silently and mentally recite these words. It will have a beneficial effect. Now that we're somewhat comfortable with these 6 syllables, we're going to recite them silently, mentally, and passively during our inhalation. During our exhalation, we can physically relax as best we can while striving to chant this 6-syllable mantra 8 times per breath. If this is your first time, please give yourself permission to have a learning curve. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. We're going to shift gears now. We're going to now recite the 6-syllable mantra while watching the play of mind, relaxing into this, and then relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. We do that here. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Mani mimi yung, 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 mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. We come to our last set of 16 breaths, so let's make them count. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. I take that back, so last set of 4 breaths, I got confused. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. Om mani me me yung, oh mani me me yung. And now, as we silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, we can watch the antics of mind as it perceives, emotes, intends, reasons, recalls, and imagines. As we silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we can relax into mind's non-graspable nature. So I'm going to take a moment to photograph the page number for tomorrow morning's class. Let us seal this evening's practice by percussively chanting love and letting go's wishes for universal enlightenment and well-being. May all minds of all beings lucid yet void now be as peacefully enlightened as a Buddha's mind symbolized by a unsettlable vision. May all speech of all beings resounding yet void now be as joyfully loving as a Buddha's speech symbolized by mantra. May all forms of all beings sensual yet void now be as beautifully healthy as a Dhamma archetype depicted in Buddha's statuary. May all lots of all beings appearing yet void now be as safely fortunate as a pure land of law depicted in Buddhist paintings. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 1/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.